It was a cold one, a real bone chiller. Like always, I was doing my nightly rounds at Oakwood Elementary. Been doing this for years, so I'm used to the sound of my boots echoing down those empty hallways. I know every inch of the place, from the dusty smell of the library to the creaking of those old gym fans. But tonight felt different. I had this feeling, this nagging unease, like something just wasn't right. I flicked on my flashlight and swept the beam across the walls and classrooms, headed down to the gym. Lights were out, just that weak moonlight filtering in through the high windows. I pushed the door open and went inside. It was even quieter in there. Just the wind whistling through the cracks in the window frames. I scanned the place. Nothing out of the ordinary, just the usual basketballs and volleyballs piled up in the corner, the soccer net kind of shimmering in the dark. I let out a breath. Was about to turn around, when I heard it. A soft scraping sound, like something was being dragged across the floor. I froze, turned around fast. In the dark, I saw something, a blurry shadow, right there in the middle of the gym. My heart started pounding in my chest, felt like someone was there. But I couldn't make heads or tails of it. Without thinking, I bolted for the door, out of the gym. I was breathing hard, made it to my old pickup truck in the parking lot. Jumped in, locked the doors. My eyes were glued to the gym, still dark, still quiet. I took a deep breath, tried to calm myself down. I kept telling myself I must have imagined it. Maybe it was just the branches scraping against the windows. Or maybe the reflection of some car headlights. I fired up the engine and drove off, away from the school. Kept checking my rearview mirror all the way home, but there was nothing there, just darkness and the streetlights. When I got home, I felt a little better, told Mary what had happened. She just chuckled and said, "Jack, you're just tired. You watch too many of those scary movies." Maybe she was right, maybe it was just my imagination. But deep down, I had this nagging feeling that I'd seen something more than just a trick of the light that night. A feeling that stuck with me for a long time, even after I'd moved on from Oakwood.
It was a dark and quiet night. I was driving past the old school in town when I heard a sound. A faint, muffled sound, like someone was calling for help. It wasn't very clear, but I had a feeling it was coming from inside the school. I hesitated for a moment, but then my curiosity got the better of me. I pulled over and noticed that the main entrance door was slightly ajar. That was a little strange. I took a deep breath and went inside. Darkness had swallowed everything. There was that familiar smell of dust and old chalk, the kind you always find in old schools. An eerie silence hung in the air, broken only by the soft whisper of wind through the window panes. I turned on my phone's flashlight and slowly started moving down the main hallway. The hallway was long, with rows of closed classroom doors on either side. My phone's light only illuminated a small circle around me, leaving the rest in absolute darkness. With every step I took, the sound of my footsteps echoed in the silence, making me feel even more uneasy. Suddenly, I heard a sound. A very faint scraping sound, as if something was being dragged across the floor. I froze in fear. I pointed my phone's light in the direction of the sound. I didn't see anything, just a fleeting shadow that disappeared into the corner of the wall. My breath quickened, my heart was pounding in my chest. I told myself I must have misheard. Maybe it was a mouse or something like that. But a bad feeling lingered deep inside me, a feeling that something was wrong. I continued walking. I just wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible. As I walked, my eyes caught something at the end of the hallway. A very faint light was coming from under one of the doors. At the very end, on the left side of the hallway, the last door. I hesitated for a moment. I didn't know what to do. My curiosity was battling with my fear. In the end, curiosity won. I slowly made my way towards that door. The closer I got, the brighter the light became. When I reached the door, I couldn't hear the scraping sound anymore. There was only a heavy silence. I placed my hand on the doorknob and gently pushed it down. The door opened with a very slight creak. What I saw inside would stay with me for a long time. Inside the room, there was a table and a few chairs, arranged haphazardly. An old lamp hung from the ceiling, providing very little light. But what caught my attention more than anything was a series of writings on the blackboard. The writings were in white chalk and looked very incomprehensible. It was as if someone had drawn a series of meaningless lines. For a moment, I felt something behind me. I quickly turned around. There was nothing there. Just the darkness of the hallway. But I felt like someone was watching me. I couldn't stay there any longer. I rushed out of the room and ran towards the exit. I didn't even look back. I just wanted to get as far away from that school as possible. When I reached my car, I breathed a sigh of relief. I locked the doors and quickly drove away. I kept checking my rearview mirror all the way home. But there was nothing there. Just the darkness of the street and the car lights. I couldn't sleep well that night. Those writings and that heavy feeling of being watched, it was all in my head. Even now, when I remember that night, a shiver runs down my spine. I never figured out what those writings meant or why that door was open. I just know that I've never gone near that place again. It was a bitterly cold winter night, the kind where the world is blanketed in a thick layer of snow. Rick, the school janitor, was taking a walk around the school grounds. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the crunch of snow beneath my boots and the howling wind. As I looked around, I noticed some peculiar footprints leading towards the old, abandoned restroom at the far end of the school. I was the only one in the school, so seeing those footprints sent a shiver down my spine. I slowly approached the restroom. The door was locked. I turned on my flashlight and peered inside. It was dark and eerily quiet. My eyes fell on the window at the far end of the restroom, which was wide open, letting snow drift inside. I opened the door and stepped in to close the window. As soon as I shut the window, the door behind me slammed shut with a loud creak, followed by a low, eerie chuckle. I spun around, flashlight in hand, but saw nothing. I cautiously moved towards the door and tried to unlock it, but it was jammed. Panic started to set in. I heard the chuckle again, this time coming from somewhere deeper in the restroom. I called out, "Who's there?" A deep, distorted voice replied with a string of unintelligible words and laughter. Suddenly, the door burst open, striking my left hand. I was frozen in fear, unable to move. I tried to look around, but couldn't see anything. I quickly ran out of the restroom and locked the door behind me. I went to the main school building and looked back at the restroom. I scanned the yard for the footprints, but they were gone. It was as if they had never been there. I couldn't sleep that night. I couldn't tell anyone what happened. They would think I was crazy. Ever since that night, I've avoided the old restroom. Every time I'm alone in the school, I can't help but wonder if there's something else lurking in the shadows.